Happy 4th, everyone. Of course, in the summertime, I refuse to go out in the daylight hours. So I still have some time to fire this one off for the nighttime festivities. Hope you're all up to something fun tonight. We've earned it. We've earned it, guys. Take a whole load off. But in the meantime, I would like to talk about our country's finest national monument, a virile, red-blooded American man who wore his receding hairline and signature mustache with such confidence, such potent sexual energy, represented in the Conversation that came out in 1974 with Enemy of the State that came out in 1998 at its most paranoid and hard-boiled. In Gene Hackman, we trust. So I definitely might have talked about the Conversation in my last 4th of July video where I discussed Blowout and JFK. But it is important that I talk about it again. It is one of my favorite films of all time. And not just because I have the hots for Hackman, although I do think that has a little something to do with it because he is just the peak male form. Just peak male attitude. And he even gets some of that feral chest hair. Ooh. My word. But it is important that we don't forget that he is generational talent, of course. His role as Harry Call is a masterclass. He captures a self-isolated man obsessed with surveillance. He's a bit of a pervert in his psychosexual game of domination, taking on the role of voyeur. He prefers this over getting involved, you see, but it comes from a deep place of silent guilt. Nothing stops the continuous throbs of his demon's pitchforks, no matter how loudly he plays his sax, and no matter how much he throws himself into his work. Even when there's no one to spy on, he creates his own technology so he can do it even better next time. On a particular day, he's hired to listen in on a couple. He's convinced himself he couldn't really care less about what it is they have to say. He's divorced himself from this notion long ago, especially after an exceptionally nasty incident a few years back in New York. And, he's convinced himself he's no longer responsible for what his clients do. He's simply a messenger. What they do with the information he collects, well, that's on them. But underneath it all, he cares deeply to the point of delirious fixation. This time, he just can't shake it. He knows this case will end in murder. But it's important to remember that everything we hear is subject to misinterpretation. How the information will be relayed depends entirely on who's listening. The Conversation is perfect 70s filmmaking. The pacing is more about character building, spending time among the people and their world. Each frame allows the story to breathe. At one point, we even explore the world of old lady hookers. This is Coppola, after all, the best era of filmmaking. So, yes, of course, there's old lady process, and you'll like it. There's also pre-Star Wars Harrison Ford, but he's nothing special when he's compared to such on-screen perfection. I would personally toss his ass in the trash just to get a shot at Hackman. Um, but the score is some of the best in cinema. Sound is exceptionally important in the film, obviously. So it makes sense the score would have to really shine. Mostly it's all a single piano, for a very lonely story. Frenzied when it needs to be, heavy when it's required, delicate when all you need is a slight touch of the keys. Manic in the end when Harry smashes up his entire apartment, driven into completely untethered psychosis, unsure how closely he himself is now being monitored, stripping himself as mentally naked as he's done to others for decades. There's no privacy, especially because surveillance isn't even relegated to the state anymore, but treated like a hobby for hire. there's nothing left to do but accept that there's always someone watching. And you can destroy yourself, but it won't do anything to save you. Like a spiritual sequel, we have Tony Scott's Enemy of the State. And looking at some of the reviews, it appears that many of the critics thought the film ridiculous at the time of release, but these are all compromised whores, of course. In fact, the NSA director, around the time that the film was released, was appalled by the representation and initiated his own indoctrination campaign to turn the tide of public opinion. Paranoid yet? Well, you should have been a long time ago. But the film follows Will Smith, a labor lawyer, a man of the people, who's cracking down on the mob's involvement in labor unions. Of course, by the late 90s, I mean, the crime family's fail sons had taken over and, basically had mostly ruined the legacy that their fathers and grandfathers and great grandfathers had cultivated. But in the film, they still had a stranglehold on the working man, so just go with it. The government wants to roll out a new surveillance program under the guise of counterterrorism, a tale that would become oversaturated in the post 9/11 Patriot Act era. The same talking points of the Bush administration were presented by this fictional regime. If you aren't a bad guy, I mean, you got nothing to hide then. You'll be fine. You got nothing to worry about, right? But Tony Scott, he knocks that argument straight out of their deceitful mouths. The whole film kicks off when a congressman is killed when he threatens to vote down the NSA's big, beautiful spy bill. But the whole thing is caught on camera by hacktivist Jason Lee. Of course, national security seeks to destroy all evidence of this. And on the run, Jason Lee runs into his old college friend Will Smith and plants the video on him without his knowledge. The action sequence is intense and demonstrates the ominous and omnipotent power of the National Security Agency. In the aftermath, Will Smith's life, of course, is ruined as they attempt to retrieve a tape he doesn't even know he has. They are ruthless in this pursuit. They want to ensure not a shred of his life can be salvaged for their inconvenience. Even though the NSA surveillance squad is a dream team of 90s cool guys such as Jamie Kennedy, Jack Black, and Seth Green in yellow tinted glasses, do not be fooled. It is important to put aside all of your positive feelings you may have towards these men, as they are our enemy. After a few false allies, Will Smith finally meets Gene Hackman, a former surveillance man. Grizzled from his years of dirty work, these two have nothing left but to work together. Even though Hackman clocks in at about 68 years old and exactly 30 years my senior, he's somehow even hotter in this film. It is crazy. Um, but he's overly guarded, like Harry in the conversation. He likes to say, "Kid, you're either incredibly stupid or incredibly smart." And it turns out Will Smith is actually incredibly smart. We doubted for a while, since he does fuck up Hackman's plans every step of the way, but we get some great action sequences out of it, and it all works out with one really clever move. Well, yes, the FBI ultimately comes to the aid of the common man. The film is perfect. But Enemy of the State ends with a happy ending for the individuals, but a sour note for the public. They don't need a bill to watch you. All they need is a secrecy of those that can provide the ability. Critics be damned, it's even more relevant today, especially with Hackman's Iranian Revolution ties. History is cyclical. The political elites and nefarious cabals are forever. Wave to the camera, everyone. Hi, NSA! We are prisoners to the surveillance state, and if they can take down Gene Hackman and Will Smith, what on God's green earth makes you believe they aren't coming for you? But before they do, let us put on a show. And who do we salute to? Oh, Gene Hackman. Oh, Gene Hackman, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with ravishing and rigorous manhood. From sea to shining sea. Happy 4th, everyone!